Hello, and welcome to Screaming in the Cloud with your host, Chief Cloud Economist at the Duckbill Group, Corey Quinn. This weekly show features conversations with people doing interesting work in the world of cloud, thoughtful commentary on the state of the technical world, and ridiculous titles for which Corey refuses to apologize. This is Screaming in the Cloud.
This video is sponsored by Teleport.
Supply chain attacks and other application exploits are growing faster than ever. Why is that? Well, here's an industry secret for you. Everyone is secretly really bad at their jobs a disturbing proportion of the time. A big, considerably more fixable reason is because vulnerable CI/CD systems, service accounts, and microservices all don't have an identity. No identity means no authentication and authorization when these services are used, which in turn tends to serve to maximize the blast radius of an attack. And that's why Teleport created Machine ID. Machine ID delivers identity-based access and audit for infrastructure resources like servers and databases, CI/CD automation, service accounts, and custom code and applications such as microservices. By consolidating identity-based credentials for engineers and the applications they write, Teleport closes the identity loophole that enables compromised infrastructure and code to be used in cyber attacks. People will still suck at our jobs, but Machine ID helps our security posture suck significantly less. Smash the link to learn more, along with the like and subscribe buttons while you're poking around down there.
Welcome to Screaming in the Cloud. I'm Corey Quinn. Periodically, I get the privilege of speaking to people who work in varying aspects of, some would call it developer evangelism, some would call it developer advocacy, developer relations is a commonly accepted term, and I, of course, call it DevRelopers because I enjoy annoying absolutely everyone by giving things terrible names. My guest today is Priyanka Vergadia, who is a staff developer advocate at Google Cloud. Priyanka, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Corey. I'm so excited to be your developer. What did you call it again?
DevRelopper. Yes, indeed.
DevRelopper. That is the term I'm going to be using from now on. I am a DevRelopper. Anyway.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to spread this out so eventually we're going to form a giant insufferable army of people who pronounce it that way, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome.
One of the challenges, like even as I alluded to the different titles within this space, everyone has a slightly different definition of where the role starts and stops, just in terms of its function, let alone the myriad ways that that can be expressed. In the before times, I knew a number of folks in the developer advocacy space who were more or less worldwide experts in accumulating airline miles and racking up status and going from conference to conference to conference to more or less talk about things that had a tenuous at best connection to where they worked. Great. Other folks have done things in very different ways. Some people write extensively in blog posts and the rest. Others build things as sample code, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like every time I talk to someone in the space, they have found some new and exciting way of carrying the message of what their company does to arguably a very cynical customer group. Where do you start and stop with your DevRelopment?
Yeah. So that is such a, like, all the developers have their own like style that they have either adopted or learned over time that works for them. When I started, I think about 3 years ago, I did go to conferences, did those events, gave talks, all of that. But I was also my actual introduction to DevRel was with videos. I started creating, my first series was deconstructing chatbots. I was very interested in learning more about chatbots. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to teach everybody and learn. So like learn and teach at the same time was my motto. And that's kind of how I got started into like, okay, I'm going to create a few videos to learn this and teach it. And during the process, I was like, I want to do this more. And that's kind of transitioned my move from being in front of customers, which I still end up doing, but I was doing more of just, working with customers extensively to get their deployments done. This was a segue for me to, sit back and think about what's working and what I personally enjoy doing more. And that's what got me into creating videos. And I was like, okay, I'm going to become a DevRelopper now. And that's kind of how the whole like journey started. And for me, like you were pointing out earlier, should I just stop because I've been talking
No,
too
keep
long?
going, please. No, it's fine.
For me, I started, I found I would say in the last 2 years, it was all before the pandemic, we were all either writing blogs or doing videos or going to conferences. And it was, the pandemic kind of brought us to a point where it's like, okay, let's think about, we can't meet each other. Let's think about other ways to communicate and how can we make it creative and
the old way
exciting.
started breaking down too, where it's, I'm going to watch an online conference. What is it? Oh, it's like a crappy Zoom, only you don't have to pretend to pay attention in the same way. And as a presenter, then you've got to modify what you're doing to understand that people's attention spans are shorter. It's distractions always a browser tab away. And unlike a physical event, people don't feel the same sense of shame of getting up from the front row and leaving in front of 300 people and not watching the rest of your talk. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still do it, but I'll feel bad about it. Now it's, oh, no, I'm sitting here in my own little hovel. I'm just going to watch whatever I want to do. So you've got to, it forces you to up your game, and it still doesn't quite have the same impact.
Yeah, or just switch off the camera. If you're like me, I'm just switch off the camera, go away, or do something else. And yeah, it's very easy to do that. So it's not the same. So which is why it prompted, I think, all of us DevRel people to think about new ways to connect. Which is and for me, that way to connect is art and visual aspects to kind of bring, because that. We are all, whether we accept it or not, or like it or not, we're all visual learners. So that's kind of how I think when it comes to creating content. Is it visually appealing? And that's when people can dive in.
I am in the, I guess, opposite side of the universe from you, where I acknowledge and agree with everything you're saying, that people are visual creatures inherently. But I have effectively zero ability in that direction. My medium has always been playing games with words and language. And over time, I had the effectively significantly belated realization that, wait a minute, just because I'm not good at a thing doesn't mean that other people might not be good at that thing. And I don't have to do every last part of it myself. Suddenly I didn't have to do my own crappy graphic design because you can pay people who are worlds better than I'll ever be, and so on and so forth. I don't edit my own podcast audio because I'm bad at that too. But talking about things is a different story. Writing about things, building things is where I tend to see a lot of what I do tend to resonate. Yeah. But I admit I bias for the things that I enjoy doing and the way that I enjoy consuming things. You do as well, because relatively recently, as of time of this recording, you have done what I don't believe anyone actually wants to do. You wrote a book. Now, everyone wants to have written a book, but no one actually wants to write a book.
So true.
But it's not like most technical books. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I actually never thought I would write a book. If you asked me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would say I would have never thought that I would write a book, because I am not a text person. So I don't like to read a lot of text because it zones me out. So for me, when I started creating some of these sketches and sharing it on social media and in blogs and things like that, and gotten the attention that it has gotten from people, that's when I was like, okay, ding, ding, ding. I think I can do a visual book with these images. And this was like halfway through. I've already created like 30 sketches at this point. And I was like, okay, maybe I can turn this into a book, which would be interesting for me because I like doing art type things along with teaching. And it's not text, because I wanted to do this in a very unique way. So yeah, that's kind of how it ended up happening.
I have a keen appreciation for people who approach things with a different point of view. One of your colleagues, Forrest Brazil, took a somewhat similar approach in his book, The Read Aloud Cloud, where it was illustrated and everything he did was in rhyme, which is a constant source of envy for me, where it's, I've got to find a way to one-up him again. And he is inexorable as far as just continuing to self-improve. So, all right, we're going to find a way to wind up defeating that. With you, it's way easier. I read a book, it's like, wow, this is gorgeous and well written and it's attractive to look at. And I will never be able to do any of those things. That's all you. It doesn't feel like we're trying to stand at the same spot in the universe in quite the same way. Nothing but love for Forrest. Let's be clear. I am teasing. I consider him a friend.
He is amazing. Well, honestly, like I actually got to know Forrest when I decided to do this book. Wiley, who's the publisher, sent me Forrest's book, and he said, you should look at this book because the idea that you are presenting to me, we could lay it out in this format, like in the physical format. So he sent me that book, and that's how I know Forrest, honestly. So I told him that. This is a little story that I told him after. But anyway, yeah. I was going to make a point about the aspect of creating images. Like, honestly, like I designed the aspects of like how you lay out information in the sketches. I studied a bunch of stuff to come up with how do I make it precise and things like that. But there's no way this book was possible without some design help. Like I can't possibly do the entire thing unless I have like 5 years. So
right. On top of all of this, you do presumptively have a day job as well. And while this is definitely related, I'm just going to go write a book. Oh, is it a dissertation? No, it's going to look more like a children's book than that, is what they're going to hear. And I'm predicting some problems with the performance evaluation process at large companies when you start down those paths.
Exactly. So I ended up like showing all these numbers of like the blog views and reads and social media presence of some of these images that were going viral. And the GCP Sketchnote GitHub repo got a huge number of stars, and it's like everybody could see that writing a book would be amazing. From that point on, I was just like, I don't think I can scale that. So when I was drawing, this is an example. When I drew my first sketch, it took me an entire weekend to just draw one sketch, which is what I was only doing that the entire weekend, like assume like 16 hours of work, just drawing one sketch. So if I went with that pace, this book was not possible. So after I had the idea laid out, had the process in place, I got some design help, which expedited the process much, much faster.
There's a lot to be said for doing something that you enjoy. Do you do live sketchnoting during conference talks as well? Or do you tend to not do it while someone is talking at a reasonably fast clip and, well, in 45 minutes, this had better be done, so let's go. I've seen people who can do that, and I just marvel in awe at what they do.
I don't do live sketching. For me, paper and pen is a better medium. That's just the medium that I like to work with. So when the talk is happening, I'm actually taking notes on a pen and a paper. And then after, I can sketch it out faster, in a fast way. Like I did one sketch note for Next 2020, I think. And that was done like a day after Next was over. So it could take all the bits and pieces that were important and put it into that sketch. But I can't do live. That's just one of the things I haven't figured out yet.
For me, I was always writing my email newsletter, so it was relatively rapid turnaround. And Twitter was interesting for me. I finally cracked the nut on how to express myself in a way that worked. The challenge that I ran into then was, okay, there are thoughts I occasionally have that don't lend themselves to then 140, now 280 characters. So I should probably start writing long form. And then I wound up starting writing 1,000 to 1,500 word blog post every week that goes out. And that forced me to become a better writer across the board. And then it became about one-upping myself. I started live tweeting conference talks. And a personal secret around why I do that is I'm ADHD in a bottle. Someone gets on stage. You say you zone out when you read a giant quantity of data. You prefer something more visual, more interactive. For me, I'm the opposite, where when someone gets on stage and starts talking, it's okay, get to, yes, you're doing the intro of what a cloud might be. I get that point. This is supposed to be a more advanced talk. Can we speed it up a bit?
Yeah.
And doing the live tweeting about it, but not just relating what is said, but by making a joke about it, it's how I keep myself engaged and from zoning out. Because let's face it, this industry is extraordinarily boring if you don't bring a little bit of light to it.
Yeah,
And how to continue, and how to do that was hard. And it took me time to get there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like that's exactly why I got into like creating videos and sketches. Like in videos, it also like I come up with like fake examples of companies that may or may not exist. Like I made up a dog shoemaking company that ships out shoes when you need them and then return them, and there's a size and stuff. Like you have to come up with interesting things to make the content interesting, because otherwise this can get boring pretty quickly. But just going back to your example, like, speed it up, get to the point.
It was fun to start experimenting with it too, because all right, once I was done learning how to live tweet other people's talks and mostly get it correct, because someone says something, I have 3 to 5 seconds to come up with what I want to talk about, maybe grab a picture and then move on to the next thing. And it's easy to get that wrong and say things you don't necessarily intend to and get taken the wrong way. I've mostly gotten past that. And I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm better than I used to be. And then it was, okay, how do I top this? And I started live tweeting conference talks that I was giving live, which is always fun. Like being able to pre-write some tweets at certain times, have certain webhooks in your slide deck and whatnot that fire these things off. And again, I'm not saying any of this is recommended or even a good idea, but it definitely wasn't boring. And continue to find ways to make the same type of material new and interesting is one of the challenges, because this stuff is complex.
Also bite size, right? Like I think Twitter is like the 280 words are obviously limiting, but it also forces you to think about it in bite size, right? Like, okay, if I have a blog post, then I'm summarizing it. How would I do it in 2 sentences? It forces me to think about it that way, which makes it very applicable to the time spans that we have now, right? Which is maybe like 30 seconds. You can have somebody on a post.
Attention is a rare and precious commodity.
Yeah.
People view it as engagement. I think that's the wrong metric to go after, because that inspires a whole bunch of terrible incentives. Whereas finding something that is interesting and a way to bring light to it and have a perspective on it that makes people think about it differently. For me, it's been humor, but that's my own approach to things. In your direction, it seems to be telling a story through visual arts. And that is something we don't see nearly as much of. I have to say, I'm a big fan of the way that you're approaching this. If people want to learn more about what you're up to, and arguably, as I argue they should, get a copy of your book because it is glorious, where's the best place to find you?
Thank you. Okay, so LinkedIn and Twitter are my platforms that I check every single day. So you can message me, connect with me. I am available as, my handle is P Vergadia. I don't know if we have...
this is all going in the show notes. You need not worry.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I don't have to spell it because my last name is hard. So you'll find it in the show notes. But yeah, you can connect with me there, and you will find at the top of both of my profiles the link to order the book. So you can do it there.
Excellent. And I've already done so, and I am just waiting for it to arrive. So it's going to be an exciting read, if nothing else. One of these days, I may have to actually live tweet a reading thereof. We'll see how that plays out.
That would be amazing.
Be careful what you wish for. Some of the times the start could be a little too cutting. We have to be cautious of that.
I'm always scared of your tweets. Like, do I want to read this or not?
If nothing else, it at least tries to be funny. So there is that.
Yes, for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited for when you get a chance to read it, and just tweet whatever you feel like from all the bits and pieces that I've brought together. So I would love to get your take.
Oh, you will, one way or another. That's one of those non-optional things. It's one of the fun parts of dealing with me. It's, oh crap, that shit poster's back again. Like the kid outside in your yard, just like across the street, staring at your house and pointing. And it's, oh dear, here we go. Throwing stones.
I'm excited either way.
He's got a platypus with him this time. What's going on? It happens. We deal with what we have to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was amazing. You are a celebrity, and I wanted to be, part of your show for a long time. So I'm glad we were able to make it work.
You are welcome back anytime.
I will.
An absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Priyanka Vergadia, staff DevRelopper, but you call it developer advocate at Google Cloud. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and this is Screaming in the Cloud. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this thing. Whereas if you've hated it, please do the exact same thing, making sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons on the YouTube. That's where it is. But if you did hate it, also leave an insulting, angry comment, but not using words. I want you to draw a picture telling me exactly what you didn't like about this episode.